All right, so I'm out obviously for my early morning Saturday, a little rucking. I'm up to 40 pounds, thank you. Goal is 60 pounds. I think I'll get there pretty soon. And just also prepping for a couple OCRs, obstacle course races coming up. And I also just kind of heads up, I submitted my video for American Ninja Warrior for the next season. So fingers crossed I get on for a second time and can kind of redeem myself. But I just wanted to kind of talk about something that came up today, or sorry, earlier this week. I was at a foreclosure auction. Surprise, 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 right? One of the gentlemen who's kind of newer into real estate, flipping actually. He's been mostly going to foreclosure auctions and trying to reach out to wholesalers to find properties. He actually got his first property at a foreclosure auction back in the end of 2023 and just sold it just about I think a couple weeks ago. So he made some decent profit. He's pretty excited. And so he actually asked my opinion about how should he proceed. He's just kind of getting into it. He's actually built up a pretty decent war chest. And he's got a couple flips right now in the works, and he wanted to know how to proceed, and or at least what I would do. And so I gave him a little advice, because one of the things that he is kind of come up against is, while he's doing great for capital gains, he's going to have quite a bit of tax hit. So we kind of talked a little bit of strategy there. Everyone's kind of got a different strategy. What I kind of said as a recommendation was, you need to look at what makes the most sense. What are your real goals, and maybe considering start also holding some stuff. And I thought maybe looking into, and I kind of gave him a referral for my CPA to try and talk to, and about maybe possibly doing another tax strategy, some kind of self-directed IRA or something, start kind of building something that up so we can start kind of growing his flip money tax-free. And then maybe also look at buying and holding some assets for long-term wealth. I mean, he's still very young. I think that would be a really great strategy for him. Once again, if I was him, I would be doing that. But he's going to keep flipping, which I think is a really good strategy. It's very similar to what we're doing right now, is while we are still flipping some houses, I think we got 10 projects right now that we're flipping. We are also still kind of looking for the right strategy as far as holds. So while I talked on my prior video about where we are in the cycle right now, and actually Ken McElroy just released a video which was pretty great. He also released a chart in that video that kind of really gives I resonated well for me as far as where we're at in the market cycles. So I just want to give credit where credit is due. Ken McElroy created this image. Thank you so much. It's a really great image, and depicting 3 different real estate markets, and then just talking about the general cycle of real estate markets and where they're at in each one. And for the most part, I have to say I agree with them. And this is kind of relevant to the discussion with this gentleman about where we are now and how to position yourself and strategize. First part of it, of course, it's the recovery phase. This is where you've bottomed out and you see a big increase in foreclosures. It's on its downward trend, is kind of bottomed out, and you hopefully will start seeing things shifting into an upward trend. You also see a lot of people have gotten out of the market. You'll see less realtors. You'll see a lot of less people flipping houses. Everyone kind of starts getting scared of real estate. So, and this is the phase where if you coin Warren Buffett, be fearful when people are greedy, and be greedy when people are fearful. This is when everyone's fearful, so get ready to be greedy. So after that cycle, you then go into recovery. Then you go to the expansion phase. The expansion phase is when things start heating up. You can really get some really good deals as far as properties. You're still seeing a decent amount of foreclosures. You're seeing also it's still being it's definitely a buyer's market still. You're seeing a lot of opportunities even on the MLS. Off-market deals are prevalent as well still, and you things are starting to turn around a lot. And this is another great time to keep adding to your portfolio. Maybe flip a couple properties here and there to add more capital to buy more properties that are going to be starting appreciating quite a bit. After that, then you go into the hyper supply. This is where it starts the downward trend. This is when a market starts, it's oversupplied, the bubble has started to pop or deflate, or whatever it might be. Ideally, you have already started getting out of anything that you've not are holding for long term. So this is kind of where we really need to kind of be careful that you're not holding on and catching a falling knife. After that, you then go into the recession, and this is where everything starts to bottom out, and you start seeing more and more deals. And so I want to kind of talk about where we're at with different ones and where Ken's talking about there, because it's once again prevalent to the gentleman I was talking to. So what this talks about here in his chart is that residential real estate, so basically single family homes for flippers and stuff like that, this is still in the expansion phase. It hasn't peaked, given the fact that went around just looking at supply and demand. There's still quite a huge demand, and to see what happens with interest rates and stuff like that, it's still an opportunity to keep flipping houses, but it's getting tight. So while we're still flipping some houses, we're being very cautious about what we're buying, and even being more prevalent at the foreclosure auctions. So we got to kind of be careful to make sure we don't overbuy or pay too much, because once the market kind of shifts, now will it deflate largely, we'll have a crash? I don't know. I don't think so, not in the residential. It definitely might just kind of peter out, but right now it's really hard to say. I just know I'd be cautious in this phase. He then talks about multifamily. He doesn't specify multifamily as being, I think he's mostly talking about 5+ units. So that is basically commercial property, at least from a banking perspective. So you got 5+ units, and it is in the hyper supply and starting to kind of have a downward trend. So I am definitely seeing that. I'm seeing vacancy increase. And it's not that it's increasing necessarily in our market. I mean, it's just, it does take a little bit longer to fill the units than before, where you put a unit, you've got like 20 people showing up and things are getting rented for crazy dollars. So things are starting to kind of level out a little bit. You're seeing more of a kind of realistic market from that, which is good for renters. So that's really good. And so that's, kind of looking where we're at there. So then the next thing is where we at with office, which is another form of the real estate. And where we're at right there is that right now he's saying, and I believe he's right, is we're in the recession phase. That is bottoming out. I mean, I can get some crazy deals right now on office stuff. I just unfortunately don't know what, for the most part, to do and reposition that office, because we did take a office space, but we bought it a couple of years ago. We did take it and converted it into a salon, which actually turned out really well. Have a great tenant there, so that's awesome. So that was a great conversion. It was a long time, took about a year between new lease negotiation and then work to complete the work, but now it is up and operational and fantastic. So that was one, but some of these office buildings don't make a lot of sense, but I'm seeing cap rates go up and up for buildings that have either mixed use with office or just office themselves. So we're not jumping in on that right now. We're still kind of looking at it. And so back to what the original thing of this video was, is talking to this gentleman. So right now, with the phase you're in, if you can stockpile cash from your flips into some tax advantages vehicles, such as some self-directed IRAs, stuff like that, and then look to possibly start transitioning into some more holds where we're in the phase, maybe some multifamily if he's got the wherewithal. So yeah, pull me. So yeah, so you really want to kind of, so I tell him about looking at that as an opportunity, and so he can start building his wealth, as well as adding a nice, solid cash flow. I told him to focus on cash flow. That is, right now, don't worry about appreciations. Don't focus that. Make sure you have solid cash flow, that there's plenty of room for that. And then just keep, doing the flips that you're doing, being tight on his numbers. He was at the auction and bid about a little over what I was going to bid, but I think it was still good numbers. He does a lot of the work himself, so he's able to keep that stuff down, so it made sense. But if he didn't actually win it, unfortunately, someone else won it for just slightly more, and I think they'll still do well. But taking that money and that capital gain, funneling it into tax advantage vehicles is a great strategy to then, once you have the right deal is putting into 1031, sorry, not 1031. So 1031 probably won't make sense. It's gonna be really tight. I think I talked about before is that we've kind of stayed away from it right now. It's just doesn't, with all the numbers and the stress of it right now, doesn't make sense to find. So same thing with it. We're using other tax strategies to offset capital gains from all of our flips. Luckily, we have a lot of real estate owned that we can leverage, whether it be cost effective studies or just general depreciation, that we can offset a lot of the capital gain from these flips, which makes it very good for tax purposes. But I digress. So kind of really recommended that should be his focus. At least if I was him, that's kind of how I would do it. And I think, honestly, talking to him, I think he's going to crush it. He's kind of entering into the next phase. If he builds up a good war chest, has some good systems and processes in place, gets the right people, because he didn't have a CPA, stuff like that. So, I think my CPA is amazing. So hopefully he can help him. Hopefully they click. But I think that would be a fantastic opportunity for him to build a massive empire for himself and his family, possibly, that he'll be able to take and build large generational wealth. He's young. I have to envy him. He's entering the part right now, and he's doing the right things. So I think he's going to do really, really well if he can put a really good plan in place and not get too greedy in the right area. So he's very cautious, buying and flipping where he likes it. He enjoys that. He sees the quick cash, but as long as he keeps sticking to his numbers and is very safe, and then transitions that in a good tax advantage way, so that he can fully capitalize on all the value that he builds, and buys more real estate that he can hold long term. And he's right now he's very risk averse as far as debt, which could be very great. He doesn't have to grow. He could just start buying stuff cash, and that is another advantageous way. I'd be apprehensive because he doesn't even have any kind of corporate structure right now, so he needs to protect himself there liability wise, I think. And then maybe figure out some kind of structure for putting some debt of some sort on his properties that he'll hold long term, just because it does still expose. When you have no debt on that, it's an opportunity for someone to target as far as being able to, for a lawsuit and stuff like that. So having some kind of structured debt on it is also a good defensive play. So we basically had a 20-minute conversation, kind of structuring that. So I'm curious to see where he goes. Curious what your guys' thoughts are. So just wanted to kind of share that with you guys, and I kind of wish him the best. I think he'll do really, really well. He's doing awesome right now, and I am sure I'll see him as more competition at my auctions. But once again, one of the other things is there are certain areas, it gets really competitive and cutthroat at these foreclosure auctions. But other times we're all entrepreneurs, we're all in the business, and there is a lot of auctions to go around. Not as many as there used to be, but there's, they're starting to come back. I was just kind of also looking at some data for days on the market and some other things in our different counties that we're in, and things are definitely ticking up. But it doesn't make sense to not share information and kind of help each other kind of improve. So that's why I was happy to chat with the guy and kind of go from there, and I hope him all the best. Love your guys' thoughts down here and what you think, and I hope this was a little bit educational for you as well, and where you're in your journey. So I wish you all the best, and see you guys on the next video. Thanks a lot.